What's up guys, this week I'm finishing the router table build part 2 of 2. I added the top, the fence, the inserts, the router, and even a part for your vacuum dust port to go. Now basically, I want to say something. This fence is basically a copy of Steve Ramsey's fence that he made. I looked online and I thought it was one of the nicest ones. I tried designing my own, but I couldn't figure out a way to make it and not have it look like his. But that's pretty much it. I don't have a miter saw or miter track yet for it because I don't have the actual store-bought ones and I want to get one of those. So I didn't have that done yet, but other than that, it's a fully functioning router table. And let's go ahead and finish this table up. So first things first, I'm going to grab my last sheet of plywood and I'm going to grab a sheet of this melamine. I'm going to head over to the table saw to cut it for the exact size for the top of the table. Alright, so what you're looking at is the jig that I made, which is actually 12.5 inches on the inside if your router is the same as mine, and I have a 5/8 inch router bit in it. I'm going the exact depth of that white board, which are going to make my insert plates, and my insert plates should be able to just be cut 7 inch by 7 inch when I'm all said and done. So what I did was I made this little plate and basically I traced all the router holes on it, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it in place and I'm going to go ahead and mark the spots, then I'll remove it and I will drill the rest all the way through. And this is going to be for my router where I can connect or mount the router directly to the wood. And then I'm going to go ahead, remove it, and then countersink it and do the rest from there. Now I can see where I started and I will just drill down from here. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is drill out the hole for the big, for the actual router and the bits to go through, and it's a 2.5 inch hole for mine. And I had this 2.5 inch hole saw conveniently, but what wasn't convenient about it was my friend gave it to me, but it didn't have the piece that held it. I'm not really sure what you call it. You can buy it, but I just never got around to getting one yet. So I just took a 1/2 inch bolt, fed it through, locked the nut on the end, and it worked in my drill press fairly well. So I'm gonna see if it works in this, and then I will be able to drill out the hole. And I just set the router, the extra screws in, and will hold it in place so I can kind of help have it guide it, because it's a little bit difficult to drill. It's definitely not the most ideal thing, but actually worked out really good. It was hard to start, but it came out really good actually. So a little jimmy rigging never hurts. And I want all the edges on these to be square, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a chisel and just chisel the rest of it square, so that when I make all my insert plates for it, I don't have to manually, I don't have to round over the edges on every single one I make. It'll just be easier if I can just cut a 7x7 square. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to square these off. So now all these corners are all squared up. So by taking a measuring tape and going along the edges, what I did was I clamped this down so it was square to the table, and this is just a little over 2 inches on this end, and I just follow it all the way down, making sure it's even. Then what I do is I go along here and I make sure this part's even. This is about 3 1/4, and I follow it all the way down, and if it's even, then I check all sides, I clamped it down, and I'm gonna screw it directly into the 2x4s on top here, but I'm gonna countersink it so it's flat, and then I can take the piece of melamine and set it on top and take some screws and drill up so that there's no holes in the top of the table. It's all flat, and I don't want to glue any of it because if I ever need to remove it and replace it, I can just unscrew it and it'll be really easy. So I went ahead and I added many more. I did the corners first, and then I just drew these lines, and I knew where to put all my screws. So now I'm gonna go ahead and put the top sheet of melamine on. Alright, so basically these are going to have washers and bolts running both through both of these boards, and basically a washer and then a bolt, and basically what it's going to do is it's going to slide open and close so that I can increase the dust port or decrease it. Now what I need to do is I'm going to start from here, which is the furthest point it needs to go, because otherwise it's not going to be collecting any more dust. So I'm going to try to see if I can simplify this and basically take it and then just go, I'm gonna line this one up here. So now I'm just gonna get like a general idea of how long it needs to be. So now I have a general idea, and on here I can now drill out 1/4 inch, and I can connect it on my scroll saw, or what I can do is use my router and just route this out. And it's a little bit late at night here, so I'm gonna go ahead and just use a jigsaw or scroll saw to connect the slots on all of these, because it's gonna be a lot quieter than a router would be. since this is a fence, I want to make sure it's square all the way down. So far so good. And this seems to be really square, and that's the thing I love about pocket holes is they're really quick and easy, and I'd say 90% of the time I get a nice square corner, and they're really strong, not to mention as well. Alright, so now comes connecting these slidable pieces onto the fence. So what I have to do first is take my bolt, a washer, and these are the 1/4" bolts. Then I slide it through here, and now you see why I cut out a wider hole and then I cut out the smaller one. That's so that nothing gets caught on the bolt. Otherwise the head of the bolt would be sticking out, and I want to be able to move my stock past it. And now on the back side, I'm going to take a washer, and then I'll just take my last wing nut here, put it on. And the reason you do wing nuts is so that you can clamp the slidable part of the fence to it, and then when you need to adjust it, you can just unloosen it and then slide it like so. So now you can see that when these are fully pushed together, they close off the space, so no vacuum. Then when I put a router bit in, and I want to slide each side, I just can easily move each side. And these should be able to slide pretty freely depending on how loose your bolts are. So both of mine slide really freely, and they open up just a little bit past this hole, but there's no point of having it going further because otherwise the vacuum's not going to be able to collect that much. So now I can just go ahead and set this and use the wing nuts in the back to lock it down every time I don't want this to move, and now that's stuck in place. So that's a pretty cool fence system there. And now I cut this out here because this is where my dust port is. So I cut out a hole big enough for my shop vac, and I'm gonna screw it on instead of nailing it on, because if I ever need to take it off and like recut out a hole or something like that, if I get a new shop vac or something like that, it'll just be real easy to take off. And now I'm almost done. Alright, so what I did was I made this piece, and basically it's a piece of oak 1.5 inches thick, which is how thick my table is. Then I just took a piece of 3/4 inch cherry here, and you want it some type of hardwood because this is going to be locking up against the table, so you want it really hard. And basically I just drilled that on, then I drilled my 5/16 inch hole through there. Now I can go ahead and take my bolt and a washer, feed it through the bottom of here, and if it's a tight fit, you can go ahead and grab like a mallet or something. Whack that in there. Then what I want to do is now put it on here, feed it through, put a washer, put a wing nut, and here's where I would recommend, if you can find knobs at your hardware store, get knobs, but I can't find where mine are. But I just got wing nuts here, and now this tightens, and what it's gonna do is, here I'll bring it under the table. What it does is when it tightens, it's pulling up against here, and that's locking onto the table. Now you might wanna get like some small like friction pad right in here, and that can also help lock it better, but you do that on both sides, and theoretically, it should be able to lock the fence on. So that's it for the router table build part 2 of 2. I finished everything. The fence clamps on there nice and sturdy. I got my vacuum dust port in the back here, and it just slides in. These pieces, if you loosen the back, they all slide and function just like they're supposed to. And just like this side does the same thing. I have my insert here. Basically, I just cut a hole, and you can make different size inserts for different size router bits. That works out really well. I think it came together really nice, and I have storage underneath here, plenty of room for all my router stuff. I don't really have that much, but what I did do was I electrical taped all this cord from the router so it wouldn't be hanging. So I just had that nice and neat. And if you're worried about dust like falling down underneath here, you can always get like a tub or something, or make like a bucket or like type of tray, and you can take it out and just empty that if you're worried about that. But then I got my switch over here to turn it on and off. It's unplugged right now though, and I think this came out really good. So give it a thumbs up if you like it. Subscribe if you're new to my channel, and I post new woodworking videos almost every Tuesday. So like and subscribe for more woodworking videos, and I'll see you guys next week.